Before we begin, the following podcast contains discussions about suicide. If you or anyone you know may be affected by this, there's a link in the episode notes to the Samaritan's website and phone number. And do consider if you should continue listening. Hi, James here. It's been over a year since we released the last episode of Poison. Going back to May 2023, at that point Kenneth Law had just been arrested and charged on 2 counts of aiding or counselling suicide. Those 2 charges have since been upgraded. Law is due to go on trial in Canada next year, charged with 14 counts of first-degree murder. I've continued to report on Kenneth Law and those affected by the poison he was allegedly selling, and now we have an update for you. I'm James Beal, Social Affairs Editor at The Times. This is Poison, a podcast about the suicide of a young British man and the questions it raises. Part 5. Kenneth Law in the dock. I sat down in the Times' studios with Will, my producer on the series, to go over where we've got to on the investigation.
How's the last year been investigating this story?
It's been fascinating. The story has grown and grown since we first published our original investigation and has spread to multiple countries around the world and ended up with Kenneth Law facing trial in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the podcast series, which we released last year, he'd just been arrested. What's the state with Kenneth Law now? As I understand it, he's going to be on trial in Canada soon.
Yep, Kenneth Law is facing 14 first-degree murder charges.
Right.
And he is due to go on trial around September next year, so September 2025.
Okay, so he's been charged with 14 counts of, they call it first-degree murder over in North America. So are all these charges related to Canada? Are those 14 in Canada?
They relate to 14 deaths across the province of Ontario, including the deaths of at least 4 teenagers.
And has he been charged with anything in the UK, do you know?
No, the National Crime Agency are investigating his activities, but he has not been charged with any crime in the UK. And as I understand it, the authorities in the UK will wait to see what happens in Canada before any action.
But he is under investigation in the UK?
He is, yeah.
Okay. And in terms of these murder charges that he's facing, so Kenneth Law, he's currently in jail, right? He's in custody, isn't he? So he hasn't, since the podcast came out, he hasn't actually left jail. He was arrested soon after, and he's basically been in a cell.
He was arrested a week later,
yeah.
And he has been in a cell ever since. He has appeared in court a number of different times over the past 12 months, but he has not been granted bail.
And is it just 14 charges of murder? I mean, because 14 charges of murder seems quite high. What's the exact full charges or the full charge sheet?
He's facing 14 counts of first-degree murder. He's also facing 14 counts of aiding or counselling suicide, which carry a lesser penalty, obviously, to murder. You have a situation where he's facing possibly the most gravest charges anyone can face, and slightly less serious charges, but obviously extremely profound.
And this is the allegation that he sent this poison that we're not naming what the poison is, the substance. We've never named it throughout the podcast, and we're continuing to do so. But the allegation is that Kenneth Law has sent that to 14 people who have then gone on to take their own life.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what Kenneth Law will plead?
Kenneth Law's lawyer has said that he will plead not guilty to the charges. He said something quite interesting, actually. He said the murder charges amount to a novel proposition for somebody who's alleged to have sold products to people over the internet. So he's essentially saying that to charge someone with murder for sending something through the post doesn't quite add up. This case could be quite unique when it comes to trial. You've obviously got 2 sets of charges, one more serious than the other, and it's for a jury to decide ultimately what he's guilty of, if anything.
So, at the end of our podcast last year, the allegation was that Kenneth Law had sold poison to a variety of people. We had said that we'd linked him to up to 7 deaths. 4 of those were here in the UK, 3 were in North America. What do you know now? Like, what's the scale of this kind of developed into?
Well, as the story has unfolded over the last year, the number of deaths linked to Kenneth Law has grown. In the UK, the National Crime Agency has said that Kenneth Law's products are linked to 94 deaths. Overall, in terms of around the world, we believe he's linked to at least 127 deaths.
Wow.
That includes 3 in New Zealand and other deaths in Ireland, Italy, Germany and Switzerland.
And just putting Kenneth Law to one side for a moment, how widespread do you think this problem is, James, of people potentially selling this substance to people that then use it to go on to take their own life?
No, we know it's not just one person. Earlier this year, the BBC caught another poison seller actually in a post office selling poison around the world. And we know it's continuing to this day.
And that BBC one, that was in March this year. They tracked down a man in Ukraine who's alleged to have been selling this poison. Do you know if it was the same substance that Law was alleged to have been peddling?
I believe it was the same substance, yeah.
At the end of the series, right, we didn't actually... One of the enigmas of this whole thing was that we didn't really know that much about Kenneth Law. We didn't even actually know his age until just after the series went out. We found that out as the series developed. Like, where have you got to now on just building a profile of Kenneth Law? Have you managed to speak to people? We know he worked at that hotel in downtown Toronto. Like, have you managed to just delve into and understand who he may or may not be a bit more?
He's still quite a mysterious character.
Yeah.
I have been able to find out more about him, and I'm continuing to find out more about him as time goes on. But I've spoken to people he used to work with, for instance, who described him to me as a slightly odd character, a bit of a loner, someone actually that wasn't particularly good at his job.
Okay.
I've spoken to one of Kenneth Law's former colleagues who described an incident with another colleague of hers. He had invited this colleague out for a drink and insinuated that it was going to be a group drinks and there would be other people there. But when she turned up, it was just him, and she found that quite creepy.
Him being Kenneth Law.
Indeed, yeah. So we continue to find out more about him and his life, but there's a lot more to be uncovered, I think.
The other thing that since the podcast initially went out is you've done quite a bit of reporting on a pseudonym or an alias of someone called Greenberg. Talk me through what that's about.
Greenberg is the name of a person who was appearing on a suicide forum and repeatedly promoted Kenneth Law's products. Now, we don't know who Greenberg is, but there are some similarities between Greenberg and Kenneth Law. Greenberg on the forum discusses, for instance, his knowledge of Star Trek, the sci-fi show. We can also see that public Facebook posts by Kenneth Law are about Star Trek.
One thing that you've dug into is that the timing of when Greenberg, this alias, does Greenberg have a photo or anything on this suicide forum, or is it just
he had a photo of a dog.
Okay, so you've got this Greenberg character. This is an alias, we presume, on this suicide forum, and what you found is that, just talk me through the day that he posts something. Is it that Law's poison then also goes on sale on another website?
We can see from the dates that the first day that Law put his poison on sale was also the very first day that Greenberg mentioned it on the suicide forum. Now, Greenberg claimed to be a retired doctor from New York, but he never used his real name, and we don't know his real identity. And we also know that Greenberg ran a separate pro-suicide blog, which was taken down by Google the day after we ran our original investigation on Kenneth Law.
Is the supposition that Greenberg may have been an alias that Kenneth Law was using to promote his website that he was selling poison on?
I think it's certainly a possibility. We know of a number of people who were given the name of Kenneth Law's website by Greenberg and went on to take the poison and die. And we also know that the National Crime Agency are investigating whether Greenberg and Law are the same person.
National Crime Agency being the top police body here in the UK.
Yeah.
James, since the series and the original investigation, you've continued to speak with families who've been affected by Kenneth Law allegedly sending poison to their loved ones. I mean, how's that been?
Families have got in touch with me in the Times wanting to tell us about their loved ones who'd taken this poison and died. It's extremely hard and upsetting time for the families who are dealing with police investigations and inquests a lot of the time, and they have shown remarkable strength and courage in talking about what happened to their loved ones.
Our series began with the death of Tom Parfitt, a 22-year-old student. We spoke extensively to his father, David, throughout that series. You've got to know David quite well. I mean, how is he doing now?
David's carried on campaigning on this really important issue, and he just wants to ensure that as many lives are saved as possible.
Yeah. In fact, actually, I was at an awards ceremony with him quite recently. We got an award for this series, which was great to be recognised. And I think David, I mean, basically, I'll paraphrase what he said, but he's just very proud to see your investigative journalism, our podcast series, just being recognised and kind of, I guess, shining a light on an issue. That is what good journalism can do. There's a public interest to this, and I guess you must be quite proud of that as well.
Yeah, really proud of what we've uncovered and proud of the series.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I know you don't like talking about yourself, James, but we're also up for the British Podcast Awards. So we were up for 2 nominations at the BPAs, which is like quite a big deal in podcast world. So we're up for documentary and news and current affairs. So that would be good if the series can continue to be listened to, and we can get the word out there as much as possible about this story.
Absolutely. I mean, anything that shines light on this important issue is a good thing.
And just to sort of finish on a personal level, how have you found working on this series, investigating Kenneth Law?
I think working on stories of suicide is enormously complex. You're dealing with families who have lost loved ones and are really a very vulnerable time in their lives. So there are organisations on hand like the Samaritans to help with that.
And as ever, we've made sure that we put a link to the Samaritans and their phone number in the description notes of this episode. Kenneth Law goes on trial next year, 14 murder charges. He's expected to plead not guilty. Are you going to go there, cover the case?
Yeah, I expect so. I think it may last for a number of weeks, so I'm not sure how much of the trial will cover, but hopefully a great deal of it. You've been listening to Poison with me, James Beal. The producer is Will Rowe. Production assistance on this episode was by Sam Chantarasak. The executive producer is Kate Ford, and sound design on this episode was by Tom Burchill. Please remember, if you or anyone you know may have been affected by this episode, we've put a link to the Samaritans website and phone number in the description notes of this podcast. And if you want to get in touch with me directly about this story, please don't hesitate to get in contact. My email address is in the description notes of this episode. Thanks for listening.